Well, hey everybody, how are you? It is Friday. Yay! Not like that makes a whole heck of a difference anymore. For those who are at home, it doesn't. So, in fact, I lose track of the days. I don't know about you. But the question today is, are you underestimating your abilities? When I asked a question, I guess it was 3 or 4 days ago, like, what are your gifts? I don't know that one person answered, and I want to address that today because you absolutely need to hone in on that. If you don't hone in on some of the things you are just naturally good at, that God has placed in you, that over the years as you've worked in different jobs, you see what some of those strengths are, and if you want to call them strengths instead of gifts, then do that. So what are your strengths and your giftings that you could list out today? Hi Felicia, how are you? Good to see you. What are they? You know what I always say, I'm going to pull it out right here if I can. Hold on, guys. See if I have I usually have my notebook with me, yes. Making a column on a blank piece of paper, just a 2-column, just on a notebook, in a notebook like this, and just go down, boom. What you already have, what are your strengths? Not just technically. I don't mean, with Word, Microsoft Word, it could be that. But also, what are you bringing to the table where you're going to make life easier for your fellow coworkers? You're going to make life easier for your boss, wherever you work. What are you bringing to the table already that will help a government agency, a law firm, a courthouse, a corporation that needs a paralegal? What are you bringing to the table? So when I ask what are your giftings, it's really what are your strengths? What is that thing that, boy, you feel like you're in the center, like you're totally on it when you're in that, I don't know, I'm missing the word, but you're in that, your sweet spot. And for me, it is definitely, the sweet spot for me is not doing like filing in the office, like filing all the papers. That's the weak spot for me. Other people would love it. In fact, one of my attorneys loved filing and helping me catch up with the filing. Go figure. But he said it was mind-numbing work, and he could think about other things while he was doing it. So that was interesting, right? That was very helpful too. Hi, Ro. How are you? Felicia says, I have a great work ethic and great organizational skills. Excuse me. Well, that comes in handy. Well, anywhere. But in the legal field, definitely. Definitely. So when you're in an interview, they're not going to say, what are your giftings usually? But I like to ask that question because it is that place where you feel you are, like, it's like a phrase from the 1940s. You're cooking with gas. You're in your element. And so for me, it's problem solving and trying to find a needle in a haystack answer. And I'm let down if I can't find it. And there have been those moments. But I'd like to know what your, when you feel like you're in your element, your strengths. And I was having lunch with a coworker. We both worked at the same law firm. And she was fairly new to the law firm and new to the whole paralegal field. And she said, I've never thought about that. But I said, well, I can tell you what some of them are because I had known her for over a year, and she was the sweetest person. But she had this caring for people, and I didn't, it came across, it just came out of her, and she didn't have a mean bone in her body. So we would talk about those things at lunch, and she started to think about what her giftings were, what her strengths are. That's important to know way before you go in for your first interview at a law firm, so that you know what are you bringing to the table. It's the single most important question to understand that I will say this till I'm blue in the face, there is no training in the law firm, even if the ad says it. They will train you for, answer questions for a couple weeks, but they've got a ton of work. And then you're kind of left on your own. So you have to figure out all this stuff before you start sending your resume and cover letter out. Okay? Now, let's talk about, are you underestimating the ability to go into a law firm? Somebody mentioned to me just the other day, that was a student of mine, that I haven't gone forward. It's like there are reasons for that. I've procrastinated in areas of my life. I procrastinated in doing any live videos. Well, I couldn't because Facebook wouldn't allow it, or even recorded videos because of fear. And that procrastination is rooted in fear. So when you find yourself holding back, tune into that everybody who went to their first interview, second, fifth, 25th interview, felt that inadequacy. But the more you prepare, what does it do? It raises your confidence level. The more you prepare, and knowing that you're preparing the right way to help the attorney. Because the attorney wants you to come into that workplace and just start. And yes, you can ask questions, but they don't have a lot of time. So knowing ahead of time, and okay, I have to do this. That's why I tell you to, when you hone into 2 or 3 areas, don't hone into one. Look at 2 or 3 areas of law and then drill down, dig deep. Okay? So, confidence will lead you to action. Lack of confidence, that's okay to have us, you're going to feel, oh, how can you be 100% confident? You're not. But the more confidence you have, the more you prepare. If you've ever had to prepare, not just, like giving a talk to, or you had to prepare something in another job, and then people were going to look at it, and then that made you nervous. Been there. And my insecurities crept up regarding that, and hoping it was okay. And what I had to do was I did my best. I did the best I could do. And that's how your preparation for this career has to be. Giving that prep your best effort, and not expecting them to run a school inside the law firm, because they don't do that. And I've had people tell me, I took a certificate program, but I don't feel that I know what I'm doing. Like there's a gap. There's a gap in the 2-year program with knowing what you have to say and work in a practical way for that attorney. Like, what are those steps? They miss that because they're usually taught by attorneys, and attorneys are not the managers of the work. So making smart decisions up front, meaning I'm going to prepare. I'm going to drill down, which is a term we use in the legal field a lot. I'm going to drill down and become as knowledgeable as I can in that area, or areas, preferably, of law. Okay? And not expect to be spoon-fed by somebody in the law firm who does not have any time to do that. Okay? Hey, Bridget. Good to see you guys, and anybody else who's here live with me today, and on replay too. So here's an interesting thing. Women dominate this field. Men are in it, definitely, but women dominate the paralegal field. Yet women don't step in with as much confidence when they're polled, when they're questioned over the years. They will tend to think they're lesser than the men, and the men will be overly confident, like too confident and cocky. So it's an interesting thing, but when you make the more prep and the more bold moves you make, and you get yourself into a different mindset, even if you're an introvert. I was an extreme introvert. I'm kind of in the middle now. You can still make bold moves. So don't use introversion, like I used to, as an excuse to stand back in the background. You have to be able to talk about what you're bringing to the table. See? Because nobody can read minds. The attorney. And you have to understand how everything that you become good at or great at fits into the law firm and will help the attorney. Okay? Customer service is fantastic. We call it client relations. But that's just tip of the iceberg. That's important, undoubtedly. But it's just tip of the iceberg. Yeah, Bridget says, Felicia says, I work well under pressure also. Yes. Bridget says, there were more women in my paralegal classes than men. Yes, because men, well, first of all, it's known through research that women can multitask like no other. Now, I know there are some women that want to focus on one thing, and that's not true about their brain. But overall, the studies have shown that women multitask because it's just how we're made. Our brains are not like men's, and that works very well in the legal field. And so I think men will tend to think that the paralegal field is purely clerical when it's not. You know, it's really a combo. But boy, women can really hit the ground running in this field. And it's dominated by women, but it's dominated because we're good at it. But there are men who have risen to high levels in the paralegal field. I know a couple who became senior paralegals and became managers at the law firm of other paralegals. So, and I've known women like that too. But yeah, but men can excel in this field. I think a lot of men think it's something other than it is. You know, so yeah, but it's really interesting how it's dominated by women. So if you don't believe you are capable, then that's what you're going to get. It's all in the hard work. It's preparation, prep, and more prep. And problem solving. When you're doing preparation, meaning you're studying, you're finding out all the little parts of what a paralegal does. I don't mean knowing the law inside out and backwards. You can do that, but I'm talking about how to help the attorney. That's what I teach in my class, because you can study the law, but we're not trying to be attorneys. We're trying to be the assistant to the attorney, okay? The attorneys are off planning strategy and, yes, talking to the client and trying to figure out their next move, just like a chess game. But we're really behind the scenes, just with all our tentacles out doing everything in that office. And so the question for somebody who is prepared as they're going to get to help the attorney and then doesn't move, the question is, why isn't that person moving? And if that's you, then, and I'm not talking, I know we're in a, pandemic right now, but just like somebody said, that I get emails from, it's a company that deals in training attorneys. And they know that certain areas of law are going to just burst wide open because of what's happening right now. And it's just the way it is. And so if you haven't come into my Paralegal subscriber hub, scroll down and look for that. It's a pretty graphic in the feed, and it has two scales of justice, a scale of justice, and you'll see it'll say Paralegal subscriber hub. Go in, get signed up for that because it's free. There's a video in there called 4 Hot Areas of Law for the next 18 months that I think will be hot. So be sure you have watched that, okay? So there's a self-sabotaging that goes on when we don't move forward, because it's a lack of confidence. It's a lack of, how can I think that I am going to do this? And if we have anybody in our life that's also saying that, making snarky comments, that's not going to help. And that needs to be shut down. Shut down. Don't allow it. Ask that person to not say those things. I've had to do that in my life. I say, I don't want to hear that. And then they would be belligerent, and I'd say, I don't want to hear that. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say it. So I wanted a couple people in my life, which I had, to uplift my journey. And some people don't have anybody, but you have it here on this page. So people will decide, I'm not going to apply because then I'm committing myself. And what if they don't call me? Well, there are high percentages. You're not going to get, yes, you could possibly not get a call back. But there are reasons for that. Right now, it's because of the situation we're in worldwide. But when this is over and the jobs start appearing again, then if you're not getting a call back, there are reasons for that. It could be there's a mistake in your cover letter or resume. It's that you're applying for jobs you are not suited for. And when people say to me, no, they're not hiring because you don't have experience, you're not getting hired. Every single one of us who've gone into the legal field had zero experience, with or without education. Wrap your head around that. With or without education. Keep that in mind, because we can make excuses that we're not getting a call back because I don't have experience, and everybody wants experience. I've had people say that to me while I was in my home office live here. I was on my phone live as I'm doing now, and I went right on my laptop and looked at the ads and found a job in her area. And there was more than one. There were like 3. So it's in not looking at the right jobs and not searching correctly. But also, the final thing is you have to know how to communicate to the attorney. Okay? And so don't base it on lack of experience, because there are attorneys out there eager to hire people that have very little experience. But the more you know, the better off you'll be. Otherwise, you'll feel like you're being pulled under. So you have to know a lot about what you're doing, and that's why I started my class, Paralegal Inner Circle class, so that you would have more confidence in what the attorney expects of you. And people who have taken my class, they've said the reason I'm taking it is because I don't know what I'm doing. And that's when they were already hired in the law firm. So, and that's the scary part, because again, there's no training. Okay? Even if you've gone to school or gotten a certificate, there's a gap in your learning. Okay? You don't need to be 100% qualified to land the job. You just don't. They already know you're a newbie, but you still need to know many areas, and I mean what is expected of you the first and second day, and how do you get off the ground and get, hit the ground running, instead of feeling like you're sinking. That's one of the biggest fears of newbies, is feeling like I can't, and I've had this said to me, I don't have anybody to ask questions to on the job, and I feel like I'm dying, I'm sinking. You can solve that problem, okay, by preparing. And if you're able to, join me in the class. All right, so the polls or studies have said women tend to underestimate their abilities more than men. Women speak with less confidence about any accomplishments they've made. And women are likely to apply, listen to this one, for the jobs only when they've met all of the qualifications listed. And I teach and talk about that. I go over 6 or 7 job ads in my class for that purpose. And what keywords to look for, and what words you should not pay attention to that might stop you ordinarily, but you should not pay attention to, because I've worked in this field for 30 years. So more confidence, more action. Less confidence, less action. So that's where the procrastination comes in. That's where sometimes the excuses can start to unfold. Well, I've applied to a lot of places, but I mean before the pandemic, but they're not hiring. Somebody said, if I'm not getting callbacks, what could be the reasons? Well, I've listed those. And I have done this. Yes, I have done it. Where I've been in a rush, sent off my resume and cover letter, and the cover letter had a mistake in it when I looked at it later. Can't do that. Because what you're saying to them is, I'm a lousy proofreader. And they don't need that. So you have to proof, and that grammar in that letter has to be perfect. Because they need you to write letters. And if you send them something that is, excuse my plain English, garbage, they know you're not going to bring your A game to the law firm. So remember, that's your product you're sending out, yourself on paper. So that proofreading is a major skill for the legal field. Okay, not just using spell check, but proofreading with the eye. Let me see what else I wanted to cover. The lament, and what we don't want to have, I'll end with this, is regret. No regrets. Can't go backwards. We can look back and go, okay, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to go down that path again. I don't want to make those mistakes again. I want to do better. That's the type of talk I had with me. And what I needed to step up. And so stepping up will bring you that confidence. And searching for those areas of law. It's interesting when I ask people what areas of law they're looking at. The 2 most popular, and whenever I ask that question, is family law and or criminal law. But what I would do is look at 2 or 3 areas of law. Not just what you want to do, but what you are looking at out there that, and you can still look at job ads that were out there 30 to 45, maybe 45 days ago now, and see what was out there. But don't prepare for an area of law where there are no jobs. If you're preparing and you want to be in entertainment law, you have to be in Vegas or LA or New York. Pretty much. Across the board. It's not that there aren't entertainment lawyers in other cities that you could work for, but those are the hot spots, right? So be very logical in that step, and then prepare your heart out and come join us in the class. Paralegal Inner Circle class. Now, be sure you're coming into the Paralegal Subscriber Hub. You don't know what that is? Scroll down the feed and you'll see a pretty graphic that you can sign up there. And there are videos in there. I'm doing a 7-part series on switching to the paralegal career, and it plays into this, the different phases of that you feel initially and going forward. 7 different phases. And be sure that within the hub you will see PDFs that you can download, several videos now. There's going to be a part 2 video going in tonight into the hub, and I will also send it out by email. So but either way you will see it, whether you're on the email list or you're in the hub. You will see 19 alternative paralegal careers list. That's a PDF. Be sure you download that. A free chapter of my book, Legal Break-In, or get the book on my website, which is called ParalegalCoffeeTalk.com. And you can see the free chapter up there as well on the top of the website, or the 19 alternative paralegal careers list. Get those items so that you open up your world as far as where you can work, that you're not limited. Okay? Hey, Bridget. Yeah, corporate law is, if it depends on where you live. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I worked in my first paralegal job, we had a lot of different corporations in Tulsa, and one that was hot was big oil and gas companies, because Oklahoma, there was a lot of drilling for oil in the past, and a lot of oil companies settled there and put their headquarters there. So oil and gas, which it's a big corporations. It's interesting. I have a corporation just north of me that's the headquarters are there. It's NASCAR, and a paralegal works in-house, but the attorney works in his office in a private law firm. So that's interesting, right? And insurance companies, big corporate headquarters. I know where I used to live in Arlington Heights, Illinois, outside of Chicago, when my husband and I were first married, and they had big insurance company headquarters there, but they're all over. I mean, there's corporate headquarters in central New Jersey, where my mother-in-law lived, and there's a big insurance company headquarters there. So they're all over the place, but lots of corporations. And the only thing you don't want to get involved in is being a paralegal and then there's no attorney involved in a corporation, because then they're crossing the line in asking a paralegal to act like an attorney, which you cannot do. So that's a red flag. Okay, remember that one. That when you ask, if you're in an interview for a job like that, and you're like, who would I be reporting to? And it's like the VP of the corporation, it's not an attorney. No, be careful with that, because you have to be under the authority of an attorney. Yeah, banking is a great place to be a paralegal. Especially, but I'll tell you what a lot of banks do, though, is that they hire attorneys in private law firms to oversee that part of the issues they're dealing with. So you'd be working most of the time, not 100%, but most of the time at a private law firm. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So do you guys have any questions that you really wanted to ask? The real estate business with closings, I would think, has diminished right now. there's the ebb and flow when the economy is suffering, and there's high unemployment. I don't know that we've had this high since the Depression. That then people, like, we would probably have trouble selling a house right now, never mind people buying a house right now. And so some people with their jobs, it's troublesome to make their mortgage payment right now. And so the real estate where they do closings, that law firm, the people that do that are probably in a major slowdown right now. But what will bump up, which I won't go into here, but will be real estate foreclosures, unfortunately. So that's one of the hot areas for new paralegals and experienced paralegals. Say, hey, Bridget. No, Bridget says, so should the supervising attorney be on site? You know how you said that the attorney would be working at a private law firm and the paralegal would be at the corporation? Yeah, for some reason, for instance, NASCAR was doing it that way. And the attorney had his or her own private law firm. When I was involved with my local association, my paralegal association is no longer in existence. But when I joined it in 2007, right after I moved to this part of Florida, I was doing that to make contacts, just to be friends with other, people in the field. And I actually redid their website and did their newsletter. So we got a call, or I think it was or maybe they emailed to the president of the association an ad from NASCAR for a job, and it showed that the attorney was working off-site. That's not in every corporation. Sometimes they'll have an attorney working inside the corporation. I don't know for sure. Don't know how Walmart does it. They have a lot of paralegals. I'm not sure if there's a law firm off-site, operating their own business, but that work for Walmart, and then all the paralegals are there. It seems odd, but that's it's not that it's the norm, but I know of NASCAR doing that. And but they could, the attorneys are going to ask for some bucks, and maybe the corporation would rather they work outside at an hourly rate or that type of thing, and don't want to employ an attorney inside for that reason and pay all the benefits and all that. So the supervising attorney does not have to be on site. There's no requirement for that, but it's the choice. It's the corporation deciding what they want to do, and there are usually reasons for doing it that way. And I would guess that they don't want to pay that, that salary. For perhaps the corporation is only using the attorney on a limited basis, but you have to be careful as a paralegal in that position that you're not expected to work to be an attorney, because you're not licensed to advise the corporation. So you have to be really careful. A corporation locally here, not NASCAR, a different corporation, advertised years ago, and they were looking to hire a paralegal to oversee contracts. But there was no attorney involved that I could see. I would stay away from that like it was the plague, okay? Felicia says, moving from being a security guard into paralegal, any tips? You gotta watch a lot of my videos, lots of tips in the videos, and then I would say, take my class, Paralegal Inner Circle class. I built it because, and I have been running that class for almost 3 years now, because what I'm teaching you is everything you need to know, not about every area of law, but about litigation, about a different area of law, and everything that pretty much goes into that, and how to manage your workload. The beginning modules in my class are the first module is about cover letters. So important, and how to communicate to the attorney. Read the testimonials on my website, because what I noticed, what happened to me is I moved to Florida from Oklahoma, and I had 3 to 5 years experience by that time, 5 years, and I could not get an attorney to call me, and I had to overcome some barriers that were simple. And that's part of what I teach. There's a lot that I teach about the cover letter, but then I teach about dissecting the ads and who not to apply to. When you see certain things in the job ads, you should not apply, and which ones to apply to. And every ad is pretty much set. There's probably, I have ads that are in LA, in oh gosh, maybe Seattle and Portland, but also in New York. And all of those ads teach you something, and I go through all that in videos with copies of the ads in PDF form. But there are reasons for that, because people, again, what I said in the beginning is people will just send their resumes and cover letters out to everybody out there, but it's not the way to do it. And you're not... the communication isn't going on as to how you're going to help the attorney. And they can't read between the lines. They need to be told. And that's where people miss the boat. But when people don't get callbacks, they're so discouraged, right? I was. And I had to figure it out. And I had a couple attorneys call me and talk to me about what I was missing. So that's part of what I teach. And then I go into law office management, and also litigation, and then there's a bunch of documents you download, and then there's a lot of training right now that I'm doing in 2 of my groups right now. One group is about ready to end in mid-July, and the other one just started in April. So there's a lot of additional training in the group, plus time for Q&A. But that's why I like to take the time also to answer questions here, because you can go. Look, I was working for a corporation, not as a paralegal. I was not in the legal field, and it was one of the worst jobs I've ever had, the worst job I've had in my life. And I went, and I decided, only because I had 2 aunts that were in the legal field. One was an assistant to a judge in New Jersey, and the other one was a legal secretary, and had been for, gosh, when I went in, she'd probably worked in the legal field for 20, 30 years. And I just went into it very blindly, because there wasn't anything out there to help. So there was no other way to do it. And I was told in the beginning I couldn't do that. I would have to go to a school for 2 years and do that. But it wasn't the truth, okay? You can go that way, no problem. And you can get a certificate, no problem with that. But there's a huge portion that isn't being taught. And and you need all the confidence you can get. You need all the confidence, and you can go from security guard to that if you have office skills already, okay? You're welcome, Felicia. You can definitely have, the same opportunities as anybody else, as long as you're able to type and file, and that's the foundation. That's what I talk about in my book, Legal Break-In. And there's really not much stopping people unless the grammar skills are challenging, or typing. somebody that was on the page here had come out of the military but didn't have typing skills. So that's like, it's totally possible to eventually land a job, but the typing has to come first in that case. And so we have to make sure that, you know, I had none of the language down as far as the attorneys were. At first it was like some of the stuff they would talk about, I had no knowledge of that language. And I hadn't been around attorneys. Nobody in my family at that point was an attorney. I have a niece who's an attorney now, who's a stay-at-home mom, and she writes for a living. But I had to give myself and cut myself some slack to roll into this. And I did not start out as a paralegal. I started out in another position of legal receptionist, because yes, I could answer phones and solve problems for the client, and / legal secretary. And I had been a marketing secretary before I got married. And so I knew I had the technical skills, but what I didn't have is experience with a computer system that was not a Mac. I had one of the first Apple Macs, and they were way ahead of their time. But the whole workforce pretty much across the board were using IBM PCs, and they used ridiculous software called DOS that was like an antiquated, and so it was like going backwards, because our Apple Mac at the house was so far ahead of the IBM PC. So I had those barriers to get across, and my confidence was lacking that I could learn WordPerfect, which is what all the law firms were using. They all use Microsoft Word now. So there were a lot of barriers here that I just had to go, okay, you can do this, and do positive self-talk, because nobody could say to me, oh yeah, you're gonna get this, you'll be fine, because I had my doubts. But like everybody does, every single person has their doubts going in this field. Just like crossing over, transitioning to anything new, we have our doubts, and we're in a good club, because everybody starts out on level playing field. Everybody. It doesn't matter if you got, like I've said many times, the master's degree in whatever, rehabilitation or history. Everybody starts the same. Education does not raise you up. You learn, and when you go for a 2-year degree or a certificate, undoubtedly you learn a lot of things. But the sad part of that is you don't know how that fits in practically in helping the attorney every day. And I go into that and try to open that curtain for people in the class. So that's the purpose of the class. And the purpose of the book is to break it down into the foundational skills that you need, number 1. And then you build on top of that brick by brick. And that's why it's so important to keep track of how you're preparing and what you're learning in a notebook, to keep looking at that, to spur you on, and to go, I'm doing great, and not saying I'm such a bonehead or whatever. That just doesn't work, and that doesn't get you to the place you need to go. So the focus, like I learned how to do some things in the first job to streamline how we do things. And the paralegal that was there did not want to hear about it. She was super great, super nice, but she didn't want to hear about streamlining anything. But I took that and worked and did that to make my work go smoother and faster, and keep track of everything. And that's part of what I teach in the class too, because You can lose track and get yourself in trouble really fast. And while the attorney is the boss, they are not good managers. They don't know how to manage people. And we've all worked for people who are like that in our former jobs outside of the law field. Well, attorneys they don't have any skill sets in managing. They didn't go through that way to get to where they're going. And they don't teach that in law school. And when attorneys graduate and they take the bar exam and then they're admitted to the bar of their state and become bona fide attorneys, you would be surprised at how little they know about the inner workings of the law firm. They miss that whole thing in law school. 3 years of law school, and they don't teach them that. So it's really quite surprising, right? But that's how it is. And that's how it is in the 2-year paralegal program and the certificate program, because they're usually taught by attorneys. You understand? So I want you to feel empowered. And that means preparation all the way. And you can do that on your own and dive in deep into the whole area, but don't try to make yourself an attorney. Think of it always as somebody who's assisting the attorney, and you have to look it up that way, okay, when you're doing your research. You guys are welcome. Thank you so much. Do you have any other questions while I'm on live? I'm here to answer your questions. It's sometimes when we've been working in, I saw no future in the corporation I was in before I went into the legal field. There was no future. There was no ability to really make more money. You know how it feels to be at the beck and call. You're always at the beck and call of whether you're going to get a raise that year or a bonus. But especially a raise is welcomed, right? If you've been doing a great job. But I never depended on that in the law firm. But in the, as far as if I needed to make more money, yes, sometimes I would leave and go to a different job and up my salary. Yes, indeedy. But in a regular administrative assistant job in a corporation, not a legal job, but just that type of job, there was no hope for me to rise above to anything, to make, $2,000 more a year, which would make a difference to my paycheck. It just wasn't going to happen. And so that's why I looked at jumping into the legal field. And the choice for me then was medical or legal. But I really didn't want to deal with insurance companies in the medical field. But I wanted to see what the legal field held. And you're interested in the legal field, all of you on here right now, for a reason. Okay? And digging deep about that is important. Like, why am I interested in this? What's your why? What's your why? And understand what your why is totally. And then you go step by step in problem solving how to enter this field the right way and to help the attorney. Always keep that focus. What can I do? And if you want to become an attorney, that's your choice, if that's how you're bent. But you don't go into this thinking you're going to help people by giving them advice, because you're not allowed to do that in the U.S. as a paralegal. See? So you have to go into this with the right angle in your head, that I can help a client and be kind to them and give them the dates of a hearing that's coming up or something, but you can't advise them. So always be straight with that in your head, okay? Some people get confused about that, and they've been through stuff in their own lives with family law or anything else, and then they think, I'm going to teach somebody. You cannot, okay? That means that you're heading towards the attorney side of things. And if that's what you're destined to do, you need to do it. But you can't do that as a paralegal, okay? You are an administrative expert, an organizer, bar none, right? And that's what you are. Right, you can't practice law because you need a license to do that. And some paralegals, and I've known a couple that kind of ride that edge. That's really not good because you can get fined for that. And the attorney can get in trouble for allowing it. There are certain things paralegals can't do. And that's one of them. There are many more. You know, and some attorneys want you to do those things you're not supposed to do. Like signing a legal document with the attorney's name. You never do that. Never, 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 never. And attorneys will say, I just signed my name to that. No. See, those things you wouldn't know. You would think, oh, that's like if I sign his name to a letter and put my initials, that's okay. So it must be okay to sign his name to a legal document. No. No. Never. And then you have to refuse. So a lot of, you know, there are things that I teach you to ask in the interview so you know what you're getting into with that attorney. Okay, red flag in some of these areas. And you going in green as a newbie, you don't know these areas that are taboo. That could get you in deep doo-doo, deep fines. Okay, so yeah, well, you can Google that, Bridget. You know, there's probably all kinds of stories. People have gotten in trouble for fraud, trying to, there's people who go out on their own and try to be freelancers because they worked for an attorney for 3 years or in immigration, so they start helping people in their community with immigration paperwork. And then in Florida, there you can become a legal document preparer or legal document assistant. There are about 7 or 8 states that allow you to work on your own, but you can never call yourself a paralegal when you're doing that work. There are a lot of rules and regulations, and the Florida bar, for people who step outside the rules and regulations, they'll be on them, and what they'll do is fine them thousands of dollars. And that has happened. People don't take the rules seriously, but they will find out. Yeah, so it's like, you know, walking a tightrope when you are operating like that. You have to really abide by all the rules, and California allows working like that. Washington State, I think Arizona does too, maybe Missouri. I'm not, there are seven or so states that allow that, but lots of rules that go, and regulations. So yeah, and you know, attorneys have gotten into all kinds of trouble by the way they run their law practice. And so there are certain things that I like to find out when I interview, so so that I'm not stepping into some kind of and I want to see red flags if there are any, so I can avoid any problem. Sometimes attorneys don't act in an ethical way, and they don't take care of their cases and that type of thing. That's not for me. Yeah, those are, they have chosen to work unethically and in a poor way, and that will come back to bite them eventually, and I don't want to be part of that. So yeah, but it's like that's just people, you know, high percentage of the attorneys out there do a bang up job, and they try to do the right thing. There's always some that try to skirt what they're supposed to do, you know, and but that always comes back to bite them, literally. So okay, so that is it. Thanks for your questions. Great questions. Any other questions, post them either here on the page or go to the Paralegal Break-In group if you're not working in the legal field right now in any capacity. Come into the Paralegal Break-In group, And we've had a lot of people joining in the last few days, so come on in if you're not there, and then you might feel more comfortable posting questions there if that's how it is, okay? But either way, post questions. All right, have a great one. Have a great weekend. I probably won't be doing videos this weekend, but I'll start on Monday again. So have a good Friday night. Do something for yourself this weekend. Chill out. If there's anything you can do for fun, and don't watch too much news. Okay? All right, take care, guys. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.